Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we're about chasing optimal performance and education. I am Jeremy Mullins. I'm here today with my co-host Reno. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. Can't
Hey, I'm
complain.
super excited about today and the format of today's podcast. It's going to be something a little bit different than what we've been doing and something we wanted to do. It was really, yours and my goal when we first started this was to make the podcast short and impactful, and educational, right? And I want to read you something off that someone sent me this message, and it was kind of cool to see, what you guys and gals are telling us out in the feedback world. But someone sent me a message and was like, "Hey, I'm learning so much from your short podcasts, you know, rather than some of the longer podcasts that's out there that's just basically telling a story or trying to sell a system or product." Right. And that made me feel really good in the sense that, your and I's intent was to make these shorter, very digestible and to the point. Right. So, I appreciate, the feedback. That was from Keith. And, it just makes me feel good that people are enjoying the podcast, but are enjoying the short, straight to the point education, which you and I, wanted from our system or from our, way of doing it.
Yeah, something that I'm trying to do better in 2024, but it's just all like, how can I provide as much value up front with zero questions? And I think that's what this podcast is doing.
Yeah, yeah. What is, our intent is to educate, right? So I think today's is even, we wanted to do this, and I wanted to make sure that, inside of explaining things and kind of going the background, that we don't just explain it and leave it as is, but actually have like a, people call it call to action, in the side of social media world or marketing, where our call to action is go out and implement these things, right? Because you can digest podcasts, you can read books, but if you don't put them into play, they're not doing any good, right?
Mhm.
Like you can have, and knowledge is great to have, but if you do not take the knowledge and implement the knowledge, then you're not going to see change.
Yeah, never. I mean, never.
Never, right? Like, oh, cool, you know it, but are you doing it? So, one of the things that we talked about a little bit in the first podcast, when we talked about changing behaviors and habits and how to do it. Okay. So, how I have my clients work in these habits and change these habits is start with 3 to 5 things that you want to change. And we call these daily action items. So, you take 3 to 5 daily action items that you are going to do that's going to help you get closer to your goal. Okay. So all my clients that we're working with right now, we've already talked about it. 2024 goals should be listed out, from our fitness, our wellness, to our professional, to our financial goals. Boom, they're all in place. And, then what habits do I need to work on in order to get there? And I'll speak a little bit towards the fitness today, just to make this a little bit easier, because that's what we've kind of talked about here in the beginning of the podcast. Right. So my 3 daily action items that I'm going to work on, right? One, drink 20 ounces of water first thing in the morning, right? So I'm going to write that down every single day. I'm an old legal notepad person. I know you may recommend here in a minute how to do it on your iPhone, but I write it down. Okay, right? So write down every single day for in the month of January. You write down drink 20 ounces of water first thing in the morning. Boom. That is daily action item. Number two daily action item: walk 60 minutes a day. Right. So you'll write this down every single morning. Once you complete it, you mark it off your list, right? You do this day in and day out for the entire month. Number three, consume 30 to 50 grams of protein with your first meal of the day, right? Those would be my 3 daily action items. And I'm going to write them down every single day. And then when I complete them, mark them off the list. Now, here's the key. At the end of the month, you have to do a self-assessment, look back at your journal, look back at yourself and be like, okay, did I complete these things? And if the answer is yes, then you remove them from the list, add in 3 to 5 more daily actions that you want to become habits, right? And what you're doing with this, if you do it for the course of the year, I mean, you're looking at stacking a lot of great habits into the year. And this is what a lot of people they mess up. They think they need to make all these changes in the first week or the first month, versus people who have success long term make these changes over time and continue to make these things habits versus systems or programs or short term thinking.
And look, I said it in I think the first or second episode. Micro changes lead to macro changes. So you don't just put on these things. Don't put your action item lose 200 pounds. Don't put that as your action item.
Yeah, and that's your goal,
5
right?
pounds.
Lose
Yeah,
200 pounds. Then how are we going to do that? Use
yeah,
the education that we have here at 100%.
yeah. Um, You mean go into the digital portion of it?
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the other thing I left out, I would say is because I understand some people are going to struggle. So let's look back and say that maybe you only drink, that 20 ounces of water 15 times during the month. Okay. If you don't think that your action item has become a habit that you're doing without thinking about it, without having to write it down and look at it, then what I would do is leave that one on your list, right? So if I'm consuming my 30 to 50 grams of protein, I'm walking my 60 minutes a day, doing that day in and day out, but I'm still struggling with that 20 ounces of water, then I would remove those two, add two new ones, but leave the water on there. Okay. And once again, stick to 3 to 5 of these. You start doing more than that, it's very hard, once again, to change those habits if you're trying to do too many things at one time. So I recommend sticking to 3 to 5 daily actions that you're working in the habits. I'm an old school guy. I ask people to write it down, on a notepad, whatever you're using to work on for the day, mark it off. But what are some other ways that they can look at doing this, Rena?
so if you have an iPhone, and I'm sure Android kind of has the same thing, but if you have an Android, you need to go to the local Apple store and buy an iPhone. With that being said, we all
Fix those
have,
problems.
that's right. We have the Reminds app on the iPhone. If you're on YouTube, you can see the Reminds app. I keep it on the home screen. I'm going to start doing this in 2024 just based on this episode alone. Schedule your 3 to 5 in here, and you can actually schedule them so they can pop up every single morning. When you open your phone, it'll say, here's what you need to check off your list. When you complete it, just hit the little dot, it'll complete it. And then macro over time, as you hit the completed ones, I can go in here and I see everything that I've completed over the last, I mean, 2, 3 years. I still have stuff in here from 2021. It shows completed. So you would be able to see a big list of what everything you've been able to do over month, year, 2 years, 3 years, within the Reminds app.
Awesome. 100%. And then if you're in the first form app with me, we also have the ability to go in there and set some, daily tasks up, right? So once again, you could set some daily tasks up that might be specific to this, to help build those habits. Okay. So what I ask is you to implement this, guys, go out and pick those 3 to 5 daily action items that you want to become habits. Do us a favor, take a screenshot of it, post it on social media, tag Reno and I in that, because we want to see it. We want to see what people are working on. And once again, it's just a little bit of self accountability because when you put it out there in public, right, you're telling people that you're doing this. And that just helps, with you as from a self accountability. A lot of times it's easy for us to let ourselves down, but we don't like letting other people down.
Right.
Hope you had, you hope, yeah, if I could speak, hope you got guys. Is that guys? I'm putting guys and gals together in one word.
Yeah.
I hope you guys and gals have a great day. We will talk to you guys soon.